Hey guys, welcome back to AFK Journey. In today's video, we're going to be talking about rerolling and specifically who to reroll for and if you want to reroll. Now, I'll do a reroll guide probably like within 12 hours before the release of the game. I just want to do some final testing since the last update before I put that out, but I want to talk about who to reroll for and whether you should. First of all, the game is very generous to make you not have to reroll, so if you don't want to reroll, don't stress. We do get in our first 10 pool, everyone gets a guaranteed Cecilia. And through testing, in the after 30 pulls, everyone gets a guaranteed Smokey, Huon, or Rowan, which are all fantastic healers. Now, that's just pretty good in itself. So if you don't want to reroll, you're going to get a pretty good start. Anyway, you're going to have a core healer and you're going to have a good beginner DPS that is really good through the campaign, strong in early arena as well, and Ceci is just an all-around great unit for new players. So you're pretty much safe. But if you do want to reroll, the first stage of rerolling is going to be rerolling just to get the healer that you want out of the 3 healers that you get from 30 pulls. Now, just keep in mind when we talk about future rerolling, the first 10 pull does guarantee you Cecilia, but if you get another epic character in, say, your second 10 pull, it doesn't reset the pity to get these guys at 30 pulls. So that's how, if you want to reroll a bit more hardcore, which we'll look at options later, that's where you do it. But if the first basic level you want to do is like pick your healer, you can do that. You can reroll just until you find the healer that you want. Now, me personally, and I think other people may have differing opinions, this is just my personal opinion, and I always encourage you guys to check out other people's opinions, but I think Smokey for early game is the best solo healer. Now, later on, I think Rowan is the best combo healer to pair with one of these other two, but also healer to go into like a more bursty team later on, where in the early game, let's say you're using like Leica, in the later game maybe you're using like a Damien with his exclusive equipment or something like that. But I think Rowan is definitely fantastic for those more offensive based teams or double healer teams. And then Huon just gets fantastic as she gets more dupes. She's a really solid healer, but I find that she does need to be paired with one of these other healers in early game to be able to have the sustained capabilities, because her healing really ramps up once she finally gets her ultimate, and that is when she provides the bulk of the healing. So I think I love using her with one of these other two depending on the situation, but her by herself doesn't really work. Smokey, fantastic. Just keep in mind, Smokey, if you fight enemies that can interrupt Smokey, he's essentially useless, and that is his one crippling point. But if you want to reroll for just one specific healer, my personal preference is Smokey, then Rowan, then Huon, but honestly they're all pretty decent. Also, something to keep in mind, Smokey you can't get from the shops, whereas Rowan and Huon you can, which means you can pick up a copy of these guys if you want. Actually, is Rowan in the shop? Nonetheless, Rowan you can get from the 7-day logins as well, so that's why Smokey has a bit more higher priority for me personally. Now, moving on past that, like I said, first of all, you don't really have to reroll, you get a good start. Second of all, if you want to reroll just to get the right healer that you want, those are my recommendations. Now, if you want to reroll for that extra juicy start to the game where you're going to get like that extra epic character that is going to help you out. Now, these are the categories I've put: ideal early start, good start, future planning, some use, and which is basically just so let's go off with the first one. Let's put the big man in there, and that is going to be the ideal early start. I would think would to be get one of those healers, get your Cecilia, doesn't matter which healer, and then just get Thorin. Thorin, in my opinion, just an absolutely beastie tank in the early game. He's good right through the game, absolutely fantastic. You want to get one copy of him, then you want to keep getting dupes of him. Honestly, just my personal preferred tank in the game, and that's why I would go for him. Now, when we look at good start, and this is where I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit, good start would be getting a dupe of Cecilia, because she is going to be most people's first carry. Some people may go different strategies, but I think for basic, the fact that you can get her from the arena store to dupe her up, if you get bad RNG, she's still, like, in my opinion, one of the safest early game carries. Until you get to Mythic Plus, then I'm probably going to drop mine off the wish list. But if you can get her or one of the other ones of these guys that you don't have already, I think it's a great start. Now, getting a dupe of Smokey's good, getting a dupe of Huon's good, getting a dupe of Rowan is okay, but not as impactful just because Rowan doesn't really need dupes at the start. For me, I get one copy of Rowan, take him off the wish list. But yeah, if you can get an additional copy of Cecilia, who's going to be your main DPS early on, or an additional one of these 3 in addition to the other one you've already got, that is a good start. And there's 3 other characters that I put into this category. The first of which is going to be, if I can find the big dog, where is he? There he is, Brutus. So Brutus is the first one I chuck up here with them, because Brutus is one of those ones, you just want a copy of Brutus. Brutus is a great tank to stall because he has his invulnerability. It makes him super valuable in some stages where there's just too much pressure on the team. So I think getting a Brutus, if you don't get a Thorin, is going to be like your next sort of best option in there. Then moving past that, we have Granny, who is just another really solid tank to get you started, because once again, the game gives you a good DPS, the game gives you a good healer. What you really want to then is fill out your tank role. So I think Granny is definitely a good early game tank, and then she gets good late game with investment as well. Now, the one other one I'll put in there is going to be Vala. Now, Vala is one for me that she's probably going to be the first banner we have. Now, I'm going to make a whole video talking about whether you should pull on the banner or not and stuff like that. I don't know, and I'm going to have to test my reroll method on whether we're going to get rolls on the standard banner or whether it's just going to be through normal pulls. I don't know if you're going to be able to get her on the normal banner anyway. I'm a bit lost on it, but Vala, if you do happen to get a copy of her in your rerolls, I think she is an amazing early game character, because in the early game, I'm talking like first week, she's the only character that really offers you. Sylvaina's another one, but she's not as reliable because she just suicides. Vala gives you that ability to lock out a back row enemy that's really frustrating, because she will shoot the furthest enemy from her and she will continually steal their energy, so they won't be a threat and you can actually pick them off early. I really like Vala. Sometimes you do have to do manual play so that she doesn't go suicide early game, but in general, I think she's a fantastic early game character. She's great through campaign, great for PvP in early game as well, but she's not as impactful in the late game as some other characters, but still a great starting character to have on your roster. That is my opinion on those ones. Now we move into the future planning. These are characters that you will be using in the future that will have like more viability in future content, and maybe you need some dupes and stuff like that, but they're still good characters. It's just not that they're not going to be the most impactful in the early game. And where's my final one that I'm looking for? There. So these guys, like Iron, great for PvP. Once you get his exclusive equipment, he can ult super early, group all the enemies up. We got CC, we got Nuisance in PvP, like absolute nuisance, and even campaign, like he's got some crazy strats as well. Shakir, I just absolutely love Shakir all around. I think he's a great unit. And then we got good disruption and stuff like that over here. So these units are all units that are good, but they're not going to be as impactful like for the first week of the gameplay, but they're great to have copies of so that you can end up beefing them up later on. Now, once again, this is not like the tier list for the game. This is just like from an early game perspective on rerolling what you're rerolling for. Moving on past that, we go to the characters that do have some use, but they're not like completely broken. Like I don't know how to describe these guys any better than they do have usage, but it's just not as high as the characters that I put above this list. And where is the last one? There it is, Reese. So there's my 3 usage. Obviously, you can get really good, you can actually get good usage out of him in the early game as a DPS, but I feel like he's not going to get a spot on your wish list for Wilders because you've got these other 3 great units to go for. And keep in mind, for the first 30 pulls, you can't have a wish list as well. I'll do a whole wish list video as well. So that's what we're looking at. Like I said, you got 3 pretty decent Wilders, so he is decent early game DPS, but you know, it's hard to give him a wishlist spot. She's actually got some great use in boss fights and stuff like that. It's just hard to give her priority over some of the other options. And then we got Reese as well. Reese is very disruptive in my opinion. I like the idea of Reese in PvP. I haven't used too much, but definitely have some use in these characters, but not as good. And then we have the tier, which is kind of like these characters are yet to find their place in the game, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen. I could be wrong. Just keep in mind, everything is still fairly early. We've only just had the level cap increase beyond 240, and that can often change things in these games. But that is my thoughts around who to reroll for. Like I said, you get a free Cecilia and one of these 3 healers for free at the start of the game. That is fantastic in itself. You don't have to reroll. This is like the when I put on a rating of do you need to reroll in a game, 10 being you have to reroll, 1 being you definitely don't need to reroll. This is like a 1.5. You really don't need to reroll in this game. So if you don't like it, don't. I'm pathetic and I love rerolling, so I probably will, but that is just me. But like I said, Thorin is like my #1 target to have along with Cecilia and one of these guys to start my account, because I absolutely love Thorin as a tank. Getting one of these guys is going to be fantastic for your account. Getting one of these guys is going to be good for the future. You can get some use early game and mid game and late game out of these guys, but they're just not as prioritized as these other units. And these guys, like I said, not really my number one picks. So that is my thoughts. Once again, this is just my personal opinion. There's definitely going to be differing opinions out there. So go ahead and get some different opinions. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.